Oh, hey, what's going on? So I was walking to the bar today, and I couldn't help but think on my way, have you ever just been in one of those moods where you're just trying to find reasons to get into the holiday spirit? Like you're just waiting for your subtle niche to appear to make you feel like the holidays are actually happening. Because honestly, for me, the way that I really get into the spooky season feel of things is reading some of my favorite horror manga. And when we head inside, I'm probably not going to show many panels just for the sake of YouTube not popping my video for showing graphic material. You gotta be of age to get into the bar anyway. And one last thing, spoilers are ahead. I know.
What, you're the worst? You spoil everything? Ruin everything for everybody? It's kind of what we do here?
Pretty much. What's going on, dude? I'm actually about to head inside the bar and talk about horror manga and anime if you want to join me.
Let's get spoopy!
Alright, word. Let's go grab a drink. All right, welcome to the bar. Pineapple, I'll see you over by the wall.
Yeah, I'll see you over there. I'm gonna grab a drink in a second.
Okay, so real quick, before I head over to the wall and join Pineapple, what essentially we're going to be talking about today is the different tolerance levels of horror manga / anime that you can try out. Horror anime, manga, and comics, they come in all shapes and sizes, and what Pineapple and I are going to try to do is compress that for people that may not be, let's call it, privy to the horror genre. And essentially, we're going to talk about them in tiers, from beginner to intermediate to advanced, or, you know, the Junji Ito level, as we're just probably going to refer to it as. So let's head over to the wall and get this started. Okay, so if we were going to talk about super basic horror one-shots for some of our favorite titles, I think the obvious one to go to for someone who might not be acclimated in the horror genre is the second OVA for My Hero Academia.
Yeah, the second OVA for My Hero Academia, that's the one with the zombies and everything, is it correctly? That one is, I get why we would suggest that one because, you know, if who knows? We know that you watch My Hero Academia if you watch this channel. Like, we're fairly sure, right? But who knows, like, what else you're into? So if you want to get extremely light and kind of dip your toes into sort of the horror vibe, I guess, but still be like in somewhere comfortable with My Hero Academia, I definitely think that OVA would be the one to go to. Kind of, you know, is a fresher course on zombies, kind of a weird situation going on of whether or not there's zombies, but yeah.
And honestly, that particular OVA really isn't even that scary. Just the fact that there's zombies kind of provide that fear factor to it. You want a scary shonen, you look at Paranoia Agent, or you look at something like Jujutsu Kaisen.
Valid. Jujutsu Kaisen has a whole lot of like horror themes going on for it. And of course, I mean, Demon Slayer.
Oh, dude, I didn't even think about Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer is constantly trying to scare you with gore. I mean, like, yeah, there's tons of moments where it's like sad and, you know, you feel bad for people. But there's a lot of moments where you're like, if I put myself in this situation, this would be horrifying. Like, this would be genuinely horrifying.
Absolutely. But one of the main appeal factors is the fact that Tanjiro is so likable, and the fact that he can pull himself out of any dark situation. It kind of alleviates that fear factor with the protagonist that acts that way.
I agree. Whereas Jujutsu Kaisen is a lot more like urban Japanese folklore, or like, you know, older Japanese folklore. Like, you'll definitely see a lot of that stuff, especially because I guess curses can literally be based off of Japanese folklore. Like I forget the specific name of the legend, but there's one where like a lady has like scissors and a messed up face, and if you don't say she's pretty, she'll attack you. And there's like various stuff like that we've actually seen in Jujutsu Kaisen. I mean, we've seen Uzumaki itself in Jujutsu Kaisen, which we know is a horror manga that, I mean, really exists, that we're gonna talk about. Even that, like, in universe, that manga exists in Jujutsu Kaisen and is turned into like an ability, just because there are so many people who are afraid of it. There's so many people who have negative emotions about the series within the universe, right? Like, there are fans that you can have it be a curse. What's so dangerous about that, and I think a thing that hasn't really been touched on a lot in Jujutsu Kaisen, is then does that mean that someone like a horror author, right, is like really powerful in this world? Like, are you a monster creator?
Well, wait a minute, so you're saying that it's possible Junji Ito is like the strongest curse creator?
Yeah, and doesn't even have to be a cursed energy user or anything like that, because you're making things that people are so afraid of on a mass level that they're literally becoming actual curses that Geto can then, you know, take control of, whatever the hell, or like that other people have to deal with. Like, that's kind of a problem.
Wait, wasn't like Santa Claus like a crazy curse in Jujutsu Kaisen as well?
I think you mean Chainsaw Man, right, for Santa Claus? But I mean, that's another series where definitely I mean, it has to be mentioned if we're going to be talking about horror manga vibes, especially stuff that's in like Shonen Jump, right? Because it's a world where horrible things are being made every day just by people thinking about them or being afraid of them. So like, the more horrible things are, the more people are worrying about them, and the more horrible things there are.
I mean, he managed to turn people's fears into the thing that drives the plot. I mean, this is a manga where the main character's power comes from people's fear of chainsaws. Blood, guts, and cannibalism aside, Chainsaw Man is probably one of the most aesthetically pleasing manga that I have ever read. The art style is completely its own and feels ridiculously original, and the body horror, don't even get me started because that's just a master at work.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere, and it really helps that the way that Fujimoto draws characters sometimes, it's not one of those mangaka who's sitting down trying to make everybody pretty or everybody handsome or anything like that. Like, he'll give you a 80% ugly cast and you'll love all those characters, and then he'll give you like a bunch of characters to remind you, oh no, I can draw sexy too.
I completely agree. If there's one thing that Fujimoto knows how to do, it's balance his beauty and his horror at the same time. And to be quite honest, that's where I'm gonna pivot into like more of our intermediate horror section by, you know, maybe throwing out the suggestion that if people want to still stay in the same vein of shonen, maybe try out Fujimoto's Fire Punch.
I mean, absolutely, considering it's another one of Fujimoto's works. It's the work he did, I think, right before Chainsaw Man. And I mean, arguably, for a lot of people, Fire Punch has better art. I think it just had like I don't think it was weekly. I think it was like a different kind of release schedule. And it's a different vibe while still retaining a lot of what people like about Chainsaw Man. I mean, it's much darker. Yeah, I was about to say, like, without getting too into it is much darker. Fire Punch might be a lot. Fire Punch has some stuff in it where it's like, damn.
Yeah, the concept of the story is absolutely insane as it is. It's about a guy who has regenerative powers covered in flames that won't extinguish until the flames have extinguished its fuel, being his skin. And you know, in comparison to Chainsaw Man, it is just one hell of a story that is solely just a revenge story. Honestly, that's something where, you know, seinen really tries to pull itself away from. And I guess since we're in the spirit of talking about manga that teeter on the realm of social acceptance, why don't we talk about JAGAAAN?
JAGAAAN! The ones with all the A's.
Yeah, man, because JAGAAAN is messed up. When I tell you that this one has people shooting each other's heads off after sniffing owl shit, it's pretty damn weird. This manga, for more intents and purposes, tries to be a superhero-esque manga, but it fails horribly because of how graphic it is. I think you'd agree with me here when I say that JAGAAAN is really meant for those that are seasoned manga readers. Because JAGAAAN is that type of manga where you have to go into it with an extremely open mind, knowing that you're gonna see some weird shit.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to open your mind a little bit when you're coming into this genre, right? I mean, there's going to be all sorts of really screwed up stuff. There's really dark stuff.
Hold on. But that's the thing. People are only going to be limited by whatever they can handle.
That's valid, right? Because you're only limited by what you are willing to tolerate and what you can, because you can tolerate a lot. So, you know, part of reading these horror series and stuff like that is you're willing to put yourself through something. But if you're not trying to read anything like too crazy, then again, you could always revert back to, you know, some of those less intense series because it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, especially when we start moving into that Junji Ito stuff. But before we do get into that, do you have any spoopy time suggestions?
I have something that I want to suggest, but it's not necessarily a manga. I just want to give a little spotlight to something that I'm sure, I mean, the My Hero people here, I know y'all are a fan of heroes. You guys probably like the Avengers, right? I would imagine. Probably a little bit. You guys might have heard of them. There currently is this comic called Darkhold Iron Man by Ryan North and Guillermo Sana, the artist. And boy, oh, is this the darkest, most disgusting Marvel comic I have ever read in my entire life, right? Like, it's pretty much a retelling of his origin story. But what if when he came home with that original suit that he made in the cave, what if the suit was eating away at his skin?
That's gnarly.
And slowly kind of changing his body in various ways. It's insane. I'm not gonna spoil, but like, it is so much darker. It gives you like these really old, oh wow, Marvel wouldn't do that nowadays. Like, you know when you see like an old horror movie like Hellraiser or something, and you're like, whoa, there's some things in this where like, they might not do that nowadays. Like, we can get away with different stuff today, but they're not gonna give you the intro to Hellraiser or this and that, where there's all this like crazy blood and like guts and nuts stuff. But Darkhold Iron Man 1, again, by Ryan North and Guillermo Sana. Please find it out there, especially this Halloween, you know, go to a local comic shop or wherever you can find it. Darkhold Iron Man. It is damn good. Like, gift it for somebody if you want to.
And honestly, between JAGAAAN, Fire Punch, and Darkhold Iron Man, that's a healthy spectrum of, long form and short form comics and manga for people to choose from. But I think now it's time to let our freak flag fly and let everyone know who the true master of horror is. Because if you're gonna move into advanced forms of horror manga and anime, there's really only one choice for you: Junji Ito. Now, to some of you, you may not have any idea who Junji Ito is. Well, he's one of the iconic masters of horror to inhabit Japan. For the past 25 somewhat years, this guy has pumped out long-form titles and short stories that have terrified people. And to give credit where credit is due, I wouldn't know that Junji Ito exists if it weren't for Vocal Pineapple letting me know that that guy existed. But ever since then, I've become one of the biggest fans of his work. The fact of the matter is, when you read a Junji Ito novel or book or whatever it might be, you're in for an experience. You're not just in it for the horror or just the content, you're gonna get a full-on experience that just blows your mind. His work is truly the definition of an emotional roller coaster. You really don't know where the story is going to head at some points. And what's crazy is the scariest part of the Junji Ito story is always its plot, because the plot itself becomes the driving force for the characters. The characters themselves inside of a Junji Ito story hold zero repercussion to what is going to happen. The protagonist and the antagonists, they no longer matter. The plot drives the story. You get such a weird sensation when you read a Junji Ito novel because you're just sitting there stuck trying to figure out what's going on. For instance, the town in Uzumaki, the spiral curse itself was the main character.
It really does feel like, and now what's gonna happen to these people? How are these people gonna have a horrible time? And I don't ever think like, you really expect them to make it to the end of it. Like Junji Ito stuff, like you could be following anybody random. You could be following a teacher, a student, an artist. Like he introduces a lot of characters. He shows a lot of perspectives. And it's because to do like what he does and creating the atmosphere and creating all the tension and suspense, you have to do that. People do get swept away in the plot, like a lot in Junji Ito comics, where it's like everything kind of seems to just fall apart.
But also what Junji Ito does is he writes in a way that helps his readers not fatigue from too much horror. Like for instance, you might explain it a little bit better than I will, but it's the one with two lovers. It was kind of like Romeo and Juliet when their parents wouldn't let them see one another.
Yeah, two people literally love each other so much that they extend like Mr. Fantastic somehow randomly. And then as soon as they realize that they can do that, they wrap around each other like two wires, a braid or something. And then the bond of them wrapping around each other like two snakes, two cords wrapped around each other is impossible to like break. And then they jump into the ocean and are never seen again. That is the kind of thing where it's like, okay, sure, that's a little goofy. That's a little silly. There's a silliness to Junji Ito stuff, sure, right? But
the way that you're kind of saying that, it really does kind of make me think if, the Adult Swim version, the one that's coming out, like, what is it, like next year or something like that? It makes me wonder if censorship is going to be a thing going forward. I don't know if, they have a lot of censorship problems on, Toonami, but my guess is that, since it's like cable television, they probably won't have anything get too graphic.
I don't know. I think with Adult Swim,
really?
I feel like it's a special production. Like they are, I feel like not just because of the status, right? Obviously, but I feel like the way that it's being handled, the way that I see like everything, like it seems like someone at Adult Swim is a massive fan, and I think that they're gonna go for as few.
Yeah, Jason.
Is that what it? That's why then. If it's him, then I get it then.
Yeah.
Because like
the dude runs everything.
He's in charge of everything. So it's like, you know what I mean? If you're in love with the project, then I feel like it's in good hands.
The fact that they found a fan of the source material to tackle an actual production, it's to their benefit. And to be quite honest, if this does well, that means more Junji Ito stories will be produced. Right now, we only have Uzumaki what's in the works, the Junji Ito Chronicles, and the MHA OVAs. But the thing is, when you really want to get into that Halloween spirit and just start reading story after story, you have to take a look at Junji Ito's shorts. My favorite till this day will always be the Enigma of Amigara Fault. I mean, it has actually triggered memes until this day about it. Like, there's the one where the guy is trying to get inside the pumpkin. He's like, this spot is for me.
Oh my god.
It's so crazy, man. This manga is just crazy. It's just like, what if one day there was a big fault line that had the outline of your body, and for some reason you were drawn to it, and then you just went inside the wall and never came out. That's literally the premise of this manga. It's crazy.
It's horrifying.
Dude, it's absolutely wild. But look, that's my favorite short for Junji Ito. What would you say is your favorite short?
I think out of the shorts, for me, it would probably be a Hellstar Remina. I don't know if that counts. I know it's like...
No.
It's like 5 or 6 chapters or something like that, but that story...
It's like 7.
Yeah, you know, I think you would know. But that one is like...
It's gnarly.
It is pretty nuts. It's literally about the world ending.
It's pretty gnarly, yeah.
Right? Like, another planet or a star or something, I don't really recall entirely.
It's something ridiculous. Like, this guy discovers his star, right? And he names it after his daughter, but then he starts to realize that the star is getting closer and closer to Earth, and that eventually it, like, crashes into Earth.
And that is just like, just that concept. How do you come up with that? How are you like Junji Ito? You're sitting down and maybe like a coworker or something is like, oh yeah, I named this star after my daughter or something for her birthday. And like, do you just sit there and go, what if it came? What if it came for a visit? What if like you named the planet after your daughter and it came here and asked you why you did that?
Oh my god.
And then brought about the end of all mankind in the world. And then like you had to venture to the planet to deal with it, and it was just filled with, oh my god, unknown horrors.
You know, this is definitely one of those things I was talking about earlier, where Remina is obviously, you know, moved by its plot, not its characters.
Remina is the name of the girl, right? And she's on the cover, you see her and everything. But I mean, the main character is the planet or the star that is like really the pushing force of the problem. And like my favorite thing about this story and a lot of the Junji Ito stories is that like, sure, you have the problem, right? Like you have the problem, which is this planet and it is coming here. But a planet or a star can only be so much of a problem, right? Like other artists or mangaka or people, they would struggle with like, how do I make this a problem? How do I make this a big deal? Ooh, a planet is coming, it's gonna crash. That's bad. But like in this, it's like, no, everyone's reaction to it, the way everyone deals with it, the way people start losing their mind and like all aspects of society start breaking down and people start like losing it in a very scary way is the real horror of this manga.
Yeah, I totally get that. And one of the things that Junji Ito does really well is he manages the mental state of his characters, and he knows exactly when to break them.
Yeah.
He knows exactly when to make them go through the strife that they need to go through to acquire that desired emotion that he wants every reader to feel.
I feel like he's really good at depicting like that moment when a person like stops resisting the horror and just like gives in to how scary everything is and just loses it. Not just like snaps.
Yeah, because honestly, by like the 10th chapter or so of Uzumaki, the main character has just lost his mind. His mom is dead, his dad is dead, and they've died the craziest deaths that I've ever seen in a manga ever, period.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to show it, but the town in Uzumaki understands almost that this guy is just given up, and he's just kind of given himself as subject to whatever's
like,
going to happen.
I know I'm screwed.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. All of this death and destruction has happened around him. He's just come whatever may at this point.
If anything, like it's just something really scary in that also, that this thing knows that you have given up to it. So it's going to focus on the people that haven't. The people in Junji Ito stuff, like they try to hold on to their mentality and their views and their ideals. And I feel like it kind of echoes your experience reading. You're reading this thing for the first time and you're like, what is going on? And like sometimes maybe you'll read it and maybe like you'll come across a story where you're like, oh, I can't do this. You get something from persevering, I think, in Junji Ito stuff. I think like it takes something away from you, but it gives you something too.
Yeah, I get it. You could say that like you're losing your knee-jerk reaction to something so crazy looking. But in comparison to other horror manga, it's just the thing that Junji Ito does. He brings you on such a wild ride that you just simply don't know what curve is happening next.
I feel like in other manga, scary stuff happens, things are scary. And in Junji Ito manga, it's like sometimes things are less scary. But the reality is everything is horrifying. Like, you could be walking down, if you lived in a Junji Ito manga, you could be walking down the street in a spring day, everything is beautiful. And then you'll see like the sun move fast and the shadow of a tree start moving, like, you know, just like it should as the sun is moving, and then it'll form into the shape of like a creature that'll form into a cat and then run up and rub your leg, and then in a couple of days your leg will have like a mark on it, and then you'll slowly start becoming a big cat. And
this is the guy that created Gyo, all right? Now, if you don't remember what Gyo is, it's the one where fish get like weird spider arms attached to them.
God.
Yeah, so there is straight up great white sharks with spider legs in this manga. It's terrifying. I think they actually made a movie about it about 20 years ago. It was just disgustingly crazy.
A girl's mole on her face became a little spiral and ate up half her head, and then she kind of just kamooied herself away. At no point during the fact, like the days, weeks-long experience of her head literally becoming an empty cavity, like a spiral. She even went to school like that. She went to school with the top half of her face being a spiral. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen Junji Ito stuff like before, just on people's shirts, on Twitter and stuff. Please check it out. Please check them out. It is very worth it.
So those are suggestions in tolerance order. If you can't move past the My Hero Academia OVA, I'm sorry, but the beauty of the genre exists behind that apprehension that you may have. So if you want to delve into the world of horror in the Japanese space, I promise you, you are going to be in for a treat. It's so much fun. Despite the terror in the situations, it's just an art form that helps you remember the artist more than the characters themselves. And the thing is, it isn't until recently as well that Ito's gotten some mainstream success in American audiences. With Uzumaki coming out next year, who knows what the mainstream is going to receive when they finally get their first taste of something like Uzumaki. Pretty much what's going to happen is I'm not going to be very surprised when Uzumaki does amazingly well, and then all of a sudden you start seeing all these Junji Ito properties get bought up, and you see movies and television shows based around the stories he's done. But that's going to do it for today. Pineapple, thanks for coming through, dude.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I mean, I love horror, so just literally, I need to do more of it.
It's literally one of the greatest genres ever.
I wish Christmas was in the same week as Halloween, so it would be okay to get people like horror books and stuff like that on Halloween, well, on Christmas, but it's not. We should give gifts for Halloween instead of candy. Just give people scary literature.
You're fucking ridiculous. That's amazing, and I absolutely will do that from now on. Wonder how people can react when I show up to Christmas dressed as the Scream guy. Anyway, you trying to go grab some glowing donuts?
Let's do it.
All right, word. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers.
Glowing donuts?